We come bearing the greatest of news possible. Welcome to Get to the Hook. I am your co-host, Charles Latibeaudiere.
And I'm your co-host, Eric Colley.
This is a jubilant day.
Yeah.
Finally, Rihanna is ready to drop new music. Now, we should say, she didn't say...
Maybe this year.
She didn't say when she was going to drop it. She just said that she's ready. And while this is, we'll get into where she said this, why she said it, but I will caution fans that she's said this before.
But this time.
But this time.
This is like, Peanuts, like Charlie Brown running for the football and Lucy jerks it away at the last second.
Right.
We are all
It
Charlie
is
Brown.
exactly what it is.
The football is her album, and she's like, yoink, haha, suckers. And we keep coming back.
Yes, we do. Because it's going to come out eventually.
Time.
All right? It's going to come out eventually. We know she has been in the studio. We know she has, I don't know how many songs at this point, but she basically scrapped all of them at one point and then said, nope, this isn't right. So now she says she's got it right.
And I think whatever song she's been working on for the last 9 years it's been, since her last album, Anti, came out, she scrapped all that, and she is ready. She did an interview with Harper's Bazaar. She's on the cover of the new issue of that. And so she talked a lot about R9, as the fans call it, her 9th album. And so this is what she says, and it does sound like it's really going to happen this time. She goes, I just cracked the code on what I really want to do for my next body of work. I'm actually feeling really good about this. I know I kept saying this over the years. We know. She says that she's waited because she was like, no, it's not me. It's not right. It's not matching my growth. It's not matching my evolution. I can't do this. So sounds like she was making albums just to make albums because she is a pop star. But she didn't want to put them out, and she's at a point where she doesn't have to.
Right. It sounded like she recorded probably a full album, listened back to it, and was like, this is like my old sound. Yeah. It's not where I am.
And she goes, I don't want to listen to these songs for a year on tour, which is great. So she goes, I went through phases of what I wanted to do. This kind of album, not that album. I know it wasn't going to be about anything. She says, I know it's not going to be anything that anybody expects, and it's not going to be commercial or radio digestible, which is interesting. She goes, it's going to be where my artistry deserves to be right now. I feel like I finally cracked it.
Wait a second. Not going to be commercial or radio digestible. What does that mean? What is she going to do?
And the thing is, even as long as she's been gone, and as long as she's been around in general, if Rihanna comes out with something that doesn't sound like what is popular, does popular taste just shift to be what she's doing?
Does it shift to her? And
she
then
has that power.
She may be thinking it's not radio digestible now because it's not anything it's not a sound that's currently on the radio. But I've said this for years about Drake. Anyone remember him? He was
Barely.
He was like a rapper guy. He was an actor, Canada.
What happened to him?
I don't know, but I've said this for years. And this is gonna be the old man me going like,
okay,
I'm just tired of trap beats. And
I am too. And
it's not a tired of it. And I've always found, look, there are great songs that even I like that have trap beats, but it's been used for so long.
Over a decade.
Like at a point, like take it back to our era. Like at a point, New Jack Swing became old also.
Yeah.
So
synth pop.
I was waiting for someone to make something, and I always felt like this was before the whole Kendrick battle, that Drake was powerful enough that he could come out with innovate a new sound and taste would shift to it. And I hope Rihanna has realized that she has that power also, or at least we're going to find out if she does. But I'm excited to hear whatever it is she's going to do.
Yeah, sounds like she's ready this time.
And I love the fact that she already is thinking about touring.
Yeah.
Right? Because she said, I wouldn't want to hear these songs for a year on tour.
And the other thing she said towards her fans, she says, this much time away from music needs to count for the next thing everyone hears. It has to count. It has to matter. I have to show them the worth in the wait. I cannot put up anything mediocre. After waiting 8 years, you might as well just wait some more.
So she's saying it's coming, but you're just going to have to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, she's right. At this point, let's just wait. But as a reminder of how long it has been, the lead single from her last album was #1 for 9 weeks, one of her biggest hits. This is Work.
Just get ready for work, 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 work. You see me heavy work, 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 work. You see me do me dirt, 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 dirt.
Speaking of that Canadian guy.
Yeah, speaking of him, he's in there. 9 years ago. It's been a long time since that song.
It's been so long that she and Drake were cool back then. They were actually, there was a point where we thought they were gonna like get married. Like that's what
And then
he said he wanted.
remember he messed it up at that award show when he said he loved her.
Yep.
And she was like, nah.
Nah.
He caught the feelings.
I'm
and
good.
She was out. You notice A$AP Rocky through all this has never said, I love you.
Yeah, exactly. He's
Maybe
not
he
been
has,
on
I don't
stage.
Not publicly.
He said
anyway.
it in interviews, but it's more reserved to say it in an interview and people read it than being on stage at an award show and declaring.
Yeah, she was just like, nah, we were just like a hookup, buddy.
Yeah.
We're not, this is not what, that's not
Oh
what
yes,
this is.
that's how long it has been. And like you said, we're going to see, I don't see how it fails, whatever it is.
Purely curiosity. Remember when she released the song from Black Panther a couple of years ago, Lift Me Up? People didn't love that song, and it wasn't meant to be
Right.
a comeback. It was just a song she did. It still debuted at number 2 because it was new Rihanna music.
Right.
And now if it's really an album and she's like, this is what you've been waiting for, because she never said that about Lift Me Up. That was never meant to be
Correct.
the comeback. People are going to check that out.
I just had a thought though.
What?
What if someone else who waited a very long time, Andre 3000,
Came with a flute record?
if she goes, I mean, that was clearly not radio digestible.
She's like, I've really taken up the kazoo in these last few years, and I've got this kazoo album that you guys are not going to believe.
There's no singing on it whatsoever.
Just Rihanna playing the kazoo. It'd still be a top 10 hit. But Andre's whole Andre-ness aside,
Yes.
I made a list of some other artists. So if you're a Rihanna fan, what could you expect, maybe music-wise or commercially, with an album that we've all waited this long for? Because at a point, like you said, it's too big to fail because everyone will check it out. But also, we have almost a decade's worth of expectations at this point. And can the album ever live up to that?
There are times, we've seen it in the past, there are times where it does.
And there's times where it
But
doesn't.
it's risky. Either way, it's risky, and it has worked out for some artists, but others.
Well, let's talk about some albums that were very long awaited. Artists worked on them for a long time, and I'm not counting bands that broke up and got back together,
Right.
like Eagles and Blondie and the Cars and New Edition and Linkin Park and Queen. They all did that. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
When a band ends and then gets back together, this is somebody who tinkered on an album for a very long time, trying fans' patience, and then what was the result when it came back? I think the most legendary example of this, at least in the last 30 years, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Chinese Democracy. And the thing about that one is, Rihanna, there's been speculation about like what the album would sound like, what it'll be. They're just calling it R9 because there's no title. We knew the album was called Chinese Democracy
For a long
for a
time.
very long time.
Yeah.
Axl Rose is like, this is the album. So in context, 87, 88, Guns N' Roses blow up with Appetite for Destruction, still one of the best-selling albums of all time. Then in 91, they followed that up with Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
93, they released a covers album called The Spaghetti Incident, which is technically was their last album, but it was a covers album.
Yeah.
Then through the rest of the 90s, into the 2000s, band members come and go, Slash leaves.
Waiting.
Axl Rose says he's working on Chinese Democracy, this great opus, the biggest thing they've ever done, the greatest album. The album finally comes out after stops and starts and deadlines blown and Axl just scrapping everything and starting over from scratch. The album comes out in 2008, 15 years after their last album, 17 years after their last new material. And was it worth the wait? This was the title track, the lead single. This is Chinese Democracy.
'Cause it would take a lot more hate than you to end the fascination, even with an iron fist.
Bear in mind that came out in 2008,
Okay.
the year after Umbrella came out for
Okay.
Rihanna.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
right.
in 93, that would have been cool.
Exactly. I mean, was it worth the wait? Absolutely not.
No. And the album,
by the way, I would imagine Axl would even say that. Like,
I think he got overwhelmed by it.
and then
And
he knew that they had to put something out. It's not even that the songs are awful. They're just
No.
not. What the hell?
They
took
weren't
so
worth
long?
a 15-year wait.
Right. It wasn't like there was any dramatic difference. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
Maybe people have writer's block or what it is, but
I think it was just like perfectionism, and I think insecurity overwhelmed him because Guns N' Roses were the biggest band in the world for a minute, and there was so much expectation on this record. I'm sure that got to him at a point because they would entirely record the album and he would just scrap it and start over again. By the time it finally came out, after 15 years of working on it, the album cost $13 million, one of the most expensive albums in history. And there are not 12 musicians, 12 official Guns N' Roses band members credited on it because so many people came and went.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, well, I'm going to keep this little part of that. I'm going to keep this. Well, that guy played this. It became too much.
Yeah.
And they haven't done another album since.
Okay, so there's a case of not so great.
Yeah, that one
Not worth the wait and ends up killing the band as far as recording any new music. Obviously, they still tour.
Yeah,
but-
and when they got back together to tour and everybody wanted that, when it was Axl and Slash again and the classic lineup, they weren't playing songs from Chinese
I was going to
Democracy.
say,
That was not-
I saw them twice, and I can't recall.
Any songs?
No, I don't recall any from Chinese Democracy. I really
I mean,
don't.
the title song, when it was released, and in 2008, to Guns N' Roses' credit, it debuted in the top 40 for a week and then dropped off. But a song that sounded like that from a band that hadn't been in existence publicly for
that sound
over a
was-
decade, the audience was still there. He just had to deliver the music, which is usually the case for these. This next guy, I love him, but his career's been, it'll be 30 years this year since his debut album came out. And in that 30 years, he has released 3 albums. Talking about D'Angelo. Love D'Angelo. Came out, it was for debut album in 95.
Amazing, and is an incredibly talented musician. And to me, I know I'd imagine we're gonna get to her in a moment, but to me, he is the male version of Lauryn Hill. Like,
Yeah, and they had a song together.
supremely talented, but just not hung up on putting out lots of new
No,
albums.
because even at that time, a lot of times you'll see an artist will come out with like an album, and if it does well, they have to crank out a second one really quickly, and then they can take their time. D'Angelo, right off the bat, took 5 years before he dropped Voodoo in 2000, which was a great album, had Untitled,
Yeah.
How Does It Feel, one of the best R&B songs of the 21st century. Then it took him 14 years to get that next album out. It was officially credited to D'Angelo and The Vanguard. The album is called Black Messiah. Here's a little bit of the lead single from it. It was called Really Love.
I'm really out you. When you look at me, open up instantly.
And the funny thing is, it sounds like a D'Angelo song.
Yeah.
Like, why did it take
So
14
why
years
did
to
it
make
take
that?
14 years.
Because it
right.
wasn't like he reinvented his sound. And
Yeah, and it ends up feeling like it's a retro album. I mean, and his fans will always be there, and they're going to listen to it. But as far as it being anything that becomes that there's mass consumption of it, probably not. When
Yeah.
you wait that long and it's not a new sound, you're not going to get that. You'll get your diehard fans.
but for D'Angelo, the album did well. It debuted at number 5, but it was really well received. Critically, it made a lot of best of lists in 2014 when it came out. Won a Grammy for Best R&B Album, and when Rolling Stone updated their 500 Greatest Albums list in 2020, it was ranked 395.
Okay, that's impressive.
So it was considered a great album. But then here's the thing. Okay, D'Angelo's finally back. It's not, he's not going to be the same star he was in the late 90s, early 2000s, just because time has passed.
Yeah.
But okay, he's back. He's making great music. It's being well received. That was 2014, and we don't have a 4th album yet. So it's 11 years now, and there's still not another album.
He's probably
does
gonna,
what he wants when he wants.
He's going to make one. He will
some point.
eventually, because the guy is just too talented and is always making music. And you can always catch him doing live performances with different people here and there. And every time I see one, it just reminds me, like, God, why isn't this guy in the studio? Why?
Yeah, put
And-
some music out.
And the thing is, he is in the studio, just he's not putting anything out.
Yeah. I think this was D'Angelo kind of is credited with one of the artists that launched the neo soul movement in the
Right.
90s, that sort of retro-y R&B kind of thing. I was thinking about it. Most of the big neo soul stars all kind of suffer from that. One of the other big names of that era, Maxwell.
Maxwell, yeah.
I love Maxwell. Also, 30 years since his debut. He's slightly better than D'Angelo. In 30 years, he's released 5 albums.
Whoa, slow
And it
down.
got
Slow down,
progressively longer.
Maxwell.
Yeah, you look at the release dates. First album in 96, second album in 98. Okay, third album in 2001. That's not bad. 3 albums in 5 years.
Right.
Then we jump to 2009. He releases the album Black Summer's Night, all one word with the word black capitalized. And he said it was going to be a trilogy of albums, and each one was like Black, Summers, and Night.
Right.
So 2009, we get Black Summer's Night. 2016, 7 years later, we get Black Summer's Night.
Uh-huh.
And then in 2018, he released a single that he said, this is the first single from the Night
The
album.
night, right?
The second single came out in 2021, 3 years later. Album still hasn't come out.
Album still
Still hasn't come out. So it's
still
been,
just teasing it a little bit.
it's been 7 years since the lead single came out, and it's been 9 years since his last album.
Hey, man,
Still
you know
waiting to
what?
finish that trilogy, Maxwell.
You do you. Yeah, whatever you want.
Sade hasn't released an album since 2010, and that
yeah.
that last album, Soldier of Love, was Sade's first album since 2000. And the last one before that was 92. So in 33 years, 3 albums. And
much like the music, you take your time.
you take your time.
Take your time with it.
But the thing is, those artists, the audiences show up. Because
Yes.
they're like, it's going to be 15 years, but it's going to be worth it.
Right.
And that might be something maybe
And those songs,
better for Rihanna to aim for. Like, I know I've made you wait, but I promise you it's worth it.
when you have a grown and sexy audience,
Yeah.
you can do that.
And Rihanna's audience, she had the teen fans, but I mean, her debut single came out 20 years ago. They're not teenagers anymore. They have grown up.
20 years.
Yeah, since Ponder Replay, 2005.
Oh my God.
And of course, the queen of all of
What's
this,
happening?
actually, she doesn't fit into this category. As
Right,
we mentioned,
because-
Lauryn Hill released The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill in 1998, and we're still waiting on that second album.
Oh, yeah, I know.
20,
And
30
every now and then it gets teased. And when her son, YG, had his huge success last year and she performed with him, there was talk about it. Like, no, we're in the studio. And he said he was in the studio with her, said it to us at one point. Still nothing.
Never. And even just recently, she and Wyclef performed at the SNL 50th concert. Like, is either Fugees or Lauryn Hill? No, it's not going to happen. And D'Angelo did a song with her on that album. So I'm surprised they got that released at all. You think
Right.
that would take 30 years just to put that song out. Oh, quick sidebar. We did want to
should
mention,
say.
of course, one of Lauryn Hill's most famous songs with the Fugees was Killing Me Softly, which was her version of Roberta Flack.
Written by Roberta Flack.
No, it was a cover when Roberta.
Oh, you're right.
It was.
Cover, right.
But it's Roberta Flack's song, let's be honest.
Right.
And of course, we just found out Roberta Flack has died at the age of 88. That's
really,
sad.
really sad. She had been battling ALS. We know that she had a stroke at I think like 2018. They announced that she had the stroke. So she had some issues, but God, what an incredible, on the day we're
voice.
recording this, we just found out hours ago that she had died. And it's, there's Killing Me Softly is the song everyone points to because it's such a huge hit. And obviously because Lauryn Hill and the Fugees made it a big hit again. But I always say the first time
Ever I Saw Your
ever
Face.
I Saw Your Face, 1969.
Well, it was released
Came out in
69.
70 in a
Hit
movie.
in
What
72.
movie was it?
Play Misty for Me is a Clint
That's
Eastwood
right.
movie. Roberta Flack holds some distinctions there I don't think she always got enough credit for. The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face was the number one song of 1972. Killing Me Softly was the number one song of 1973. I think she is still the only woman ever to do that back-to-back. And she won the Grammy for either song or record or both 2 years in a row for those two songs. And she is the opposite of all these artists we're talking about because, as you said, her first album with The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face came out in 1969. It took 3 years to catch on. She recorded her first album, First Take, in a day. Why do you need 14 years when she can make
We can just
The
go in
First Time Ever I Saw
studio
Your Face in like
in
an
one
hour?
take. And I please, I encourage anyone, not only listen to the song, The First Time I Ever Saw Your Face, just look at the lyrics and read it just as a poem. It is stunningly beautiful. Like
It's
if
beautiful.
you just read it without the lyric, without the music, it's amazing.
And then you throw her voice on top of that.
Right.
And she had other hits. Feel Like Making Love was a number one hit for her. The Closer I Get to You with Donny Hathaway. All the duets they did together. Where's the Love? You've Got a Friend. I think we differ on this one. I liked her 90s hit with Maxi Priest, Set the Night to Music, which was a cover of a Starship song.
I liked it up
I know it's
until-
nothing compared to those early 70s.
No, it's not. And it's
but
okay for
I
what
like
it was
it.
in the time. I just hate the fact that Derek, it's like one of his favorite songs and he sings it every now and then.
He
or
says that's
tries to.
her best music. I'm like, now you're getting a little crazy.
Right.
You're getting a little, no.
Anyway,
Anyway,
R.I.P. to
yeah.
Roberta Flack. All right,
Um,
on with our list.
Contemporary of hers in the 70s. And it's funny, I don't think we'd ever talked about this band, and then they came up last week, and now they come up again. Talking about Boston.
That's right.
I don't know why Boston, this was not on purpose. But thinking of artists that took a long time, Boston's a good example. And they're one of the few, like Guns N' Roses, which really Guns N' Roses at that point was just Axl Rose.
Right.
You can see how a solo artist could take a long time to do this. For a band, that's a lot of people that kind of be put on hold.
Mm-hmm.
And with Boston, so their debut album comes out in 76, becomes one of the best-selling debuts in history. Their label, Epic, is like, we need another album right now to cash in. So they crank out another album that comes out in 78.
Mm-hmm.
Don't Look Back. Yeah, and it did well. But Tom Scholes, the leader of Boston, was like, I'm really not happy with that. I didn't get to take the time on it that I wanted to. So they go to make the next album in 1980. And he's like, I am taking my time. And the label didn't
And
like
he
this.
did.
They got into battles. Band members came and went. I think only 2 of them stayed. Brad Delp, the vocalist, stayed. Finally, their third album, called Third Stage, that began in 1980, was released in the fall of 1986.
Yeah.
Took them 6 years to do this. The lead single was a song that had been written in 1980. And music by 86 was very different than it had been in 1976 or 78.
Yeah.
So you think, did Boston wait too long? Did they miss their moment? Because they didn't really update their sound. They didn't
No,
go
it was.
full like synth pop or glam metal
You
or
knew
anything
it was
like
a
that.
Boston album, a Boston song. When the first single.
And so the lead single, when Amanda, that song finally dropped, it became their only #1 hit. People were ready and like,
Yeah.
we've been waiting and we're good. So this was Boston's #1 song, Amanda.
I'm gonna take you by surprise and make you realize, Amanda. I'm gonna tell you right away, I can't wait another day, Amanda.
Senior year of high school.
Okay,
Remember?
you graduated in 86 or 87?
87.
87. Yeah, that would have been the fall of that year. Yeah.
Right.
But if you told me that song came out in 1976, you'd believe it. It sounds
They
like it.
benefited from the fact that, one, they had there was all this anticipation for it. And I don't think music hadn't changed as much from the late 70s to the mid 80s as it did in some of the other acts we talked about.
Yeah.
Like for Guns N' Roses, music really did change a lot in that 14 years.
Yeah.
So Boston, I think,
Oh, and
got
it,
lucky.
It helped them that I think if they had released that in maybe 84, when things were a bit more synth pop heavy, maybe not. But by 86, you've got Bon Jovi starting to blow up. And not that Boston sounds like that, but
Yeah.
that kind of more,
Classic rock.
that classic, that,
sound.
and like Def Leppard, even though they were more bombastic than Boston.
Yeah.
Amanda slotted real well in on the radio back then
Mhm.
and was a #1 hit.
Sure.
And then it took them like another decade to make another album.
I didn't even by the way, I had to look. I didn't realize they made another
Yeah,
album.
in-
and
in
the fourth one
94.
actually did fairly
well.
well. Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
remember any singles. from
Walk
it,
On,
but-
I think, was the name of it.
Oh,
And there was a
I do
single
remember
that
the song
peaked
Walk
in the 50s on the chart. But still, for a band that had released 4 albums since
Right.
the mid 70s, to have any kind of success in the mid 90s was impressive. So yeah, waiting.
That
worked for
Brad
them.
Delp voice, man.
Oh, that guy isn't. You ever try and sing along? Not that I'm any great singer, but like on More Than a Feeling, when he
Oh,
holds,
you
when he hits
can't.
that high note, and he holds this really long high note that I can't hit that note anyway, and then he goes up a note and holds it, and you're like, holy crap! And then it goes up again. It's
Yeah.
like,
I'll take songs you'll never hear at karaoke for 1,000, Alex.
or if you
and
do, you know you're in for a bad time because
Yeah.
the person cannot do it.
They can't do it. No.
I don't know many humans. Maybe Mariah Carey in the 90s could have hit it, but not many other people could hit those notes.
Carrie doing a cover of More Than a Feeling.
Ooh, that would have been good.
Yeah.
She covered Def Leppard's Bring On Heartbreak. So
Right.
Bring On the Heartbreak. She can do rock covers. The last one I want to talk about here, this is just kind of more of an interesting thing. This is the longest somebody ever took to make an album.
Oh, okay. We have a
And-
record setter.
And I'm going to tie this into something kind of fun because you know I love samples
Uh-huh.
and seeing where samples came from. So there's an artist, it was a California jazz fusion guy named David Axelrod, not the political correspondent.
Correct.
CNN.
Correct. Not
This guy
the
was mostly a producer and had produced some stuff through the 60s. In 1968, he starts making his self-titled debut album. And he gets the drum tracks down the way he likes them, but he's not really happy with it. Gets distracted, makes another album, and releases that one instead.
same. Mhm.
Through the course of the 70s, he makes 11 albums and releases them, but has not yet finished the self-titled album he was going to make his debut. So he starts this in 1968. He scraps things. He starts over, kind of like Axl Rose. He got real fussy with it.
Uh-huh.
Finally, one summer, he sends the album. I'm going to mix this and it's going to be done. The album finally got released in 2001. It took the man 32 years to finish this album. And
So
he made 11 other albums in between and
so he
produced a
must
bunch of people.
He must have dropped how many top 40 hits did he drop
Not a
off
one.
this? Not a
Not one.
single one.
And the song I want to play is
And
not a
yet-
song from that album.
And yet, he's still, how would I say, you don't know, maybe you don't know his name, but you definitely know one of his songs.
You know one of the songs he produced. So I really wanted to use that as an excuse. One, it's fun trivia that it took him 32 years to finish an album. So Lauryn Hill, you still got some time. He was a producer in the 60s, and in 1967, there's a guy named David McCallum, was a Scottish actor mostly, famous as one of the stars on the 60s TV show The Man from U.N.C.L.E. which was a big
Right.
show in its day. They made a movie out of it with
He
Army
was
Hammer.
also
Wasn't
on like NCIS or one of those like
Was he
CBS
later on?
Yeah,
he
later
just
on.
died like a year or two ago, I think.
Yeah, I believe it was
Uh,
one of the NCIS
So
shows.
David McCallum was also a musician, and in 1967 he released an album called Music, A Bit More of Me. And David Axelrod produced this for him. There's a song called The Edge that got very famously sampled at the end of the 90s, and let's just listen to it and see if you can tell what it is.
Hmm.
That is Dr. Dre and Snoop, the next episode.
Wow. That's when you say a sample, I mean they added a little couple of guitar riffs on it, but
Yeah.
that's
That's basically the track.
it.
And so David Axelrod co-produced, technically, a Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg song.
Wow.
And that song, the next episode, came out before that debut album he started in
I was going to say, when you
1968.
said the album came out in 2001,
It was
but
after-
Snoop would come out.
That came out in
Dre's
99.
album came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he sampled a song that wasn't even released yet.
No, that song did get released.
Oh, no, the album-
Yeah,
that's right,
that
his
was
album.
that was from David McCallum's album.
Right.
But yeah, so when David Axelrod was on all over the radio with Dre and Snoop
So
in
David-
2000, he was putting the finishing touches on his album from 1968.
So maybe Dr. Dre inspired him
Maybe.
with the success of Dre's song. He's like, you know what? I do good stuff. You know, let me get in there and finish this up.
Or maybe David Axelrod inspired Dre because he also likes to take time between albums.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
It's been a minute. You
Yeah.
can come back anytime you want now.
Well, remember, he did.
Well, that doesn't count.
A lot of people not really thrilled, but you
So,
know.
Rihanna fans, maybe it'll be huge. Maybe it'll give her #1 hits. Maybe we'll be like, wow, this really wasn't worth the wait.
And
I think it's going to work out in her favor. I think we are all going to be interested in whatever it is she does.
I'm just the experimental, the whole. You're not going to recognize the sound. I hope it is I hope it is an innovation. I hope it completely revolutionizes pop, and maybe it doesn't revolutionize pop, and it's just this is who Rihanna is now.
And the good thing for her is
Rihanna, the opera singer.
she
That's
has
fine.
no. I honestly I can't even picture in my head what that would sound like.
It took
Anyway.
her a long time to figure it out too, but she said she finally unlocked it.
She did say there's rumors it was a reggae album. She says it's definitely not a reggae album. So we know we can cross that off the list.
Right.
I don't know.
She could go anywhere. It's not going to be a country album because that's
Beyonce
been done.
I don't think she said there's no genre. That's how she described it. It's no genre now.
Oh,
It's
that-
just what it is.
I don't know if I'm excited or scared of that,
But you're curious.
yes, I'm.
We are all
definitely
very curious. But maybe this year, fingers crossed, we finally get to hear it.
Next year,
Yeah, I think.
I think we're a year away, and I think she'll do a surprise drop. I
you
don't
think so.
I don't think she wants there to be this huge anticipation. Like, all right, this date it's going to come out. I think it's just going to show up one day.
That'd be pretty amazing.
I think that's how
You
she'll
just
do
wake
it.
up and there's this new album that's been 10 years in the making.
Which means it could happen at any moment.
Yeah. We'll
And
see.
when it does, we will be here.
We will be talking about it.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for us. See you next time on Get to the Hook.